So I always like to start by assuming not everyone's familiar with the whole big picture. So I want to kind of take what they say, the 30,000-foot view of things and just get the big view of everything. And this is really timely for me because I had a client who came this morning, and she has MS, multiple sclerosis. So she was asking some questions, what's the difference between Medicaid and Medicare? And I said, wow, you're really timely. You give me some practice explaining some of this. So I figured if she doesn't know, a lot of other people don't know the basics, so I don't want to dive into things and people aren't familiar with what the differences are. Okay, so Medicare versus Medicaid, what's the difference? They're, of course, both medically related, but there are some very important differences. Fast facts, okay? Funding. When you hear Medicare, that is federal. Okay, that's entirely federal. If you work and you've had your payroll taxes and some of that Medicare tax came out, that went to the federal government. Medicaid is a split between the state and the federal government, where they both pay towards the program. The federal government gives different states different amounts, so it's not the same for each state, but each state receives funds from the federal government to do the program. What does that mean? If you look at the second piece, Medicare is the same program nationwide. If I get on Medicare in Georgia and I move to California, I move to Texas, I move to New York, it doesn't matter. I'm on the same exact program. So once you're on Medicare, that's federal. Medicaid is, because it is a state federal effort, each state is allowed to make its own rules. So they get funding from the government, but each of them makes separate rules. So if you are in Georgia and you go through the process to get Georgia Medicaid and get care there, and you decide that you need to relocate to Texas, you will not automatically get Texas Medicaid. You will have to go through that process again. Okay, you are not what they say grandfathered in one state and just carries over. Okay, so it's very important to understand that, especially if it comes to moving someone who may be in a situation, maybe sometimes people like to have family members close to them, but if they are on Medicaid, they may need to make sure they are potentially staying in that state to get those benefits. Eligibility. Medicare was designed originally to benefit the elderly. Elderly meaning 65 and up. So it was age-based, okay? It is now available to those under 65 if you have certain conditions, if you have a disability, get SSDI, Social Security Disability, for 24 months, you can get Medicare. If you have end-stage renal failure or you have ALS, what's called Lou Gehrig's disease. So there are certain ways you can get Medicare if you're under 65, but it's geared towards age. It's usually thought of as, okay, I'm gonna work, be on a private insurance with my employer, and then once I get to 65 and retire, Medicare will take over and then be my source of health insurance. Medicaid is not age-based per se, is low income based. It's resource based, okay? It's designed to make sure people have healthcare at all. So it could be for someone who is a very young person who just doesn't have a lot, or of certain families that don't have a lot, or it could be someone with a disability, or it could also be someone 65. We have in Georgia 2 types of Medicaid we'll talk about. One is called Family Medicaid, a branch of Family Medicaid, and another is ABD, aged, blind, and disabled. Of course, the disabled understand, the blind is understanding, aged is 65 or older, okay? Cost, if you're on Medicare, you have some deductibles and some co-pays. So similar to your current insurance, if you ever had a private insurer through your job or use some health insurance and you go and they say you got to meet your deductible, it's similar kind of setup with Medicare. Medicaid, you have little to no copay. Okay. Again, because it's linked to someone with low income and resources, they're taking more of the cost on. That's also part of the whole federal state coordination on paying for that program. Okay. True, false. You can only receive Medicare and Medicaid if you're under a certain level of assets. I see a mix of answers. You can only receive Medicaid based on a certain amount of assets. Medicare is not means tested. Okay, so it's a very important distinction. If you are on Medicare, many of you have probably shopped Amazon at one point, and Jeff Bezos, I don't know how much he's worth, 100 billion plus. He gets to 65, he can get Medicare. Okay, it is not based on resources. Okay, Social Security disability, if someone has worked and they've received their certain amount of quarters, but they haven't made it to 65, maybe they're getting Social Security disability. Or maybe they've never worked, but maybe they have a disability, someone has the ability to get the work disability based on the work record of their parent. If you get Social Security disability for 24 months, you go potentially into getting Medicare. That's not means tested. We don't need to know what your assets are. Medicaid, asset, we'll talk about what that is. Part of what I'm called is an elder lawyer. I had to do estate planning on one side, which is the traditional wills, trusts, power of attorney, advance directive. And then the other side of my practice is what's called elder law. The term elder was always meant in the beginning to just handle issues of aging. So it was geared towards the elderly, but the same issues of incapacity and needing government benefits can apply to those who are disabled, who are not elderly. So the elder law practice is going to handle dealing with social supplemental security income, SSI. And SSI is a cash payment. In 2021, it cannot exceed $794 a month. But if you get SSI, you automatically get Medicaid. Okay, so if you get SSI, say you make you get $650 of SSI, then you will get Medicaid automatically. You can get SSDI and SSI. So if I had SSDI for $650, I can get another 144 SSI. So I'll get Medicaid automatically for just having at least $1 of SSI. And then after 2 years on SSDI, I would get Medicare. Okay, so you can have both. You can have both SSDI and SSI, and you can have Medicare and Medicaid. Okay. True, false. Medicare and Medicaid cover the same items. I see some yeses. Some no, yes, no, yes, no, no, no. Okay, I see a lot of no's. And generally the no's will have it. You have some similarities, some overlap, of course, but there are definitely some things that Medicaid will cover that Medicare will not. And the most important one to highlight is long-term care nursing home. Okay, so if someone is trying to get long-term care, and we'll talk about what that means, custodial care, that kind of care is not going to be covered long-term by Medicare. They may do it for a short period of time, but then they will not pay for it, and then you will have to come out of your pocket or find a source like Medicaid or some other source to pay for that. Some people use long-term care insurance to help. It depends on what your personal situation is. You see some there private pay, some people have savings, some people do what's called reverse mortgages and tap into the equity of their home to do things. Some people have life insurance or cash value. Some people have annuities. So you'll have to figure out a lot of times how you're going to pay for long-term care. And that's when Medicaid really comes in, because those costs can obviously get expensive, and you can go through a situation where you can pretty much exhaust your life savings if you're forced to pay out of pocket. So what we are trying to do a lot of times as elder law attorneys with people is try to talk to them about, first of all, pre-planning. And that's a lot of times people, when you try to talk to them about planning for long-term care, they're usually very optimistic, and they say, well, I don't really have to worry about that, or my family will help me, or this and that. So we try to encourage people to have that conversation. But more likely than not, sometimes people have the intent to plan, but maybe life happens, right? And when life happens, with Medicaid, there's a 5-year window for when you put an application in, that they look back, they look at your assets at that point in time, but there's a 5-year period where they look back to see if you have given away any assets. And if you have, you get penalized. So what happens sometimes is we try to talk to them in general, say, okay, we want to look 5 years ahead whenever we talk to people, but if they don't do it, or something happens where you can't get that 5 years, we do what's called crisis planning. And there's certain strategies we can do to try to help people qualify if they can't go through that 5 years. But the critical part is to understand Medicare will not cover long-term care, and Medicaid may cover long-term care. But then the question is, where does it cover long-term care? Okay. I know a lot of people, in particular, if they get, I said where it covers it, a lot of people want to get coverage for their health care at home, okay? Because when we think about getting coverage, we don't want to have to leave our home and go to a nursing home to do it. Now, the way the program was originally designed with Medicaid, you had the long-term care in a nursing home setting. A lot of people said, we want to get treated at home. So they did what's called ask for a waiver. All right. So if you hear the term Medicaid waiver, it's a waiver of the setting where you get your care. Okay. So if you want to try to get care at home, that is a Medicaid waiver of the need to get the care in a nursing home, and trying to waive it so you can get it outside and getting in the home. There are two types of, when we say home care, we want to make sure we're clear what we're referring to, because Medicare and Medicaid both have payments for home health care, and there's a difference from home health care and home care. Okay, so I want to kind of talk to you about that, so you kind of, when you hear certain terms, just like we talk about Medicare and Medicaid, you understand the distinction. I want you to understand the distinction between home health and home care. Okay? When you hear home health, that's going to be something medically ordered by a physician. Okay, there's some medical aspects, some medical skill required to do that. So you're going to have either licensed, nurse, therapist, social worker, somebody who has licensed training to do it. The home care, the non-medical services, could be companion care, sitting agencies, trained care aides, but they're not licensed for medical duties. And we'll talk about what assistance for daily activities. We'll talk about that a little bit, what that means. Okay. So here's some examples to make it kind of more concrete. You can see up top, it says, while both home health and home care services are provided in the home setting, there are sharp differences between each. The biggest difference, according to care.com, is that home health care is a higher level of care that is deemed medically necessary by a physician. Also, home health is covered by Medicare, Medicaid, and most private insurance plans, while home care is often paid for privately or sometimes by long-term care insurance. So has anyone heard about long-term care insurance? That's another part of this. There's kind of two different types that are out there. There's long-term care insurance that's called the traditional long-term care. And that's where you basically pay into this policy that you will use. It's more of a reimbursement style. If once you need it, you have a certain period of time you have to wait. So say you have a need for it, you might have something that says 30 days or 60 days or 90 days of having care before you can actually have the insurance company give you coverage. And then once you get to that point, you have to pay whatever agency and then submit your bill to the insurance company and they reimburse you. So it's a little bit different than the traditional thought of health insurance where you just say, hey, here's my insurance card, and then the company pays first, or you might have a copay with them. With the traditional long-term care, you're going to put out the money and then get reimbursed. Also, with traditional long-term care, what happened is that people would pay for years and years and years, and maybe they never got a chance to use it, right? So if I might pay for long-term care and I might die of a heart attack, all right? I never got a chance to use my long-term care insurance. So what the insurance companies started to do when they realized people were kind of backing off from it, they started to make we call them hybrids. So they'll take life insurance, and maybe some of you've heard it, where they have riders. So they'll have life insurance with a long-term care rider. And the rider will allow you to tap into some of the benefits of the policy if you need it for long-term care. So that's another source of funding there. So with the examples here, home care, meal prep, light house cleaning, you have someone come in, just light house cleaning, help you get dressed, some transportation maybe to and from appointment, reminders, yeah, you need to take your medicine to help keep up with your medications. Home health, now you're talking about something more medically oriented, wound care, IV, intravenous nutrition therapy, injections. So those monitoring serious illness, unstable health status, have a nurse come in. So that's the kind of difference between those two. So again, Medicare and Medicaid would pay for the home health. Home care would be more private or maybe long-term care insurance. And this is just a graphic talking about that, showing you visually. Again, home health covered by Medicare, private health, Medicaid, and Medicaid waiver. And then home care, potentially by your policy of long-term care insurance, depending on what it is that you have. And of course, private pay, you can always private pay out of your savings or other means. Okay.